Democratic Congressman Jake Auchincloss of Massachusetts, who is backing the bill. He's the original co-sponsor of it. In fact, Congressman, thank you very much for being here.
Good morning.
So do you expect this ban to pass today? I mean, we have seen some progressive opposition to it. We've seen President Trump essentially flip-flop on a TikTok ban. Is that influencing Republicans? How do you see this playing out today?
Can't speak to Trump's influence on Republicans. That's always an open question. I do think it's going to pass the House of Representatives with a strong bipartisan majority. And to be clear, it's not a ban, it's a forced sale. And the reason the forced sale, I think, is the appropriate measure here is that Congress needs to hold social media corporations accountable. We need to hold them accountable for their effect on kids' mental health. I'm the youngest parent in the Democratic caucus. I spend a lot of time talking to fellow parents, both inside the chamber, but more importantly in my district. And what I hear is a tremendous amount of anxiety about the effect that not just TikTok, but Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Meta are having on their kids' attention spans, socio-emotional development, cognitive development. And I hear that from kids, too. Congress needs to step up, regulate these corporations on behalf of American parents. But we can't do that if they're answering to Xi Jinping, not to Congress.
Right. Well, I mean, what do you see as the difference between American-backed platforms like Meta and TikTok? Because the big argument that Mike Gallagher, for example, Republican congressman who's been leading the charge on this, says is that there's a national security problem here, that China is able to influence how our young people are thinking.
There is a national security problem. I actually think that's secondary. But Chairman Gallagher is correct. TikTok's algorithm, TikTok's data, which includes personally identifiable information about Americans, is subject under Chinese law to the control of Xi Jinping. And that's not ambiguous. That is Chinese law that says if Xi Jinping wants it, he gets it. And they can control that algorithm to amplify certain types of content and suppress other types of content. I mean, try posting about the ethnic cleansing in Xinjiang province and see how many likes you get on TikTok. It's just not going to happen. So there's no doubt that they have...
I imagine the word Uyghur is surfaced.
No. So there's no doubt that there is political interference there. But actually, to me, that's secondary. I'm just as interested in regulating Meta and Twitter and Instagram and YouTube as I am in TikTok. The difference is those are American companies already subject to U.S. law. TikTok is not. We need to hold all of big tech accountable for the effect they've had on platforming disinformation, for the effect that they've had on kids' mental health, for the effect that they've had on our civil discourse. They need to be reined in, just like we put in place common sense regulations for linear TV and print media, all respecting the First Amendment, but just guardrails.
Fair enough. Do you have TikTok on your phone?
I do not.
Yeah. I finally put it on mine after years of on my work phone only. But still, some of these things that are coming out about it make me nervous. Do you think there's a risk to Democrats? Let me show you what your colleague Maxwell Frost had to say about this. Watch.
I don't think it'll be helpful with young voters. But, you know, my argument here, yes, it has to do with young people. But taking a step back, I just think it's bad policy in fixing this problem that we do have to fix.
He, of course, the first, I believe, Gen Z member of Congress. Do you think there's a problem for Democrats if the president signs this bill?
I haven't looked at opinion polls on it. I don't know, and I prefer not to let opinion polls drive the policy that we make in Congress. I think it's incumbent upon us as policymakers to say, we've got access to information and experts. We have made this informed judgment, and now let's go out and try to explain why we think it. And if American voters are going to push back hard on that, we'll get that feedback. But I'm going out into my district over the next several months and saying, I've heard from you as parents and kids that you're concerned about the effects that social media screen time is having on your family time. Here's what we're trying to do about it.
Yeah, all right, fair enough. Let's talk a little bit about Ukraine. The administration has announced that they're going to send another $300 million. They claim that they found it in savings from weapons contracts after they had previously said that the money wasn't there. Do you support their move to do this? And also, there is a discharge petition. Your leader, Hakeem Jeffries, is encouraging Democrats to sign on to that from Congressman McGovern. Some progressives, including Pramila Jayapal, have expressed opposition to that. Do you support the discharge petition? And what do you think the best way is to get this money to Ukraine?
Yes, I support the president's $300 million to Ukraine. They need everything they can get as a stopgap measure, but we need the full $60 billion to help them continue this fight. And for that reason, I signed the discharge petition yesterday. I don't agree with progressives who are not signing on to that discharge petition over concerns about Israel. Even if they are not ultimately going to vote on the final legislation, they can still help put that legislation on the floor for an up or down vote. We have to allow the People's House to work its will because Speaker Johnson is too afraid of Donald Trump to do so.
Congressman, I also want to talk about something that I know is important to you. You're running for re-election, and you have formed a new PAC called Beyond Thoughts and Prayers. Thoughts and prayers, obviously something we see a lot of on social media in the wake of school shootings and other mass shootings. Tell me a little bit about why this is what you're focused on here as you mount your re-election campaign.
My worst day in Congress was not January 6th. My worst day in Congress was the night of Uvalde. And I've got 3 little kids, and I thought about those parents identifying their children by their shoes. And I was so angry and upset, and I just felt like we need to politicize this issue. People keep on saying, no, you can't politicize this issue. Send thoughts and prayers. It's a mental health challenge. And it's just a cop-out. And it's the Republicans caving in to the gun lobby. We have got to put this issue on the ballot across the country. We have to support Democrats whose profile, whose experience, whose passion supports gun violence legislation so that we can ban assault weapons, so that we can require safe storage, keep kids safe from their leading cause of death, so that we can stop shielding gun manufacturers from prosecution. They're the only industry in America that can't be sued for the misuse of their wares. It's an abomination. All of this stuff has majority support from Americans. It now needs majority support in Congress.
Do you feel like this is an issue that is a totally safe one for Democrats across the country to run on? If you're looking at like Senator Jon Tester, for example, in Montana, I mean, there have been some situations where gun reforms have honestly been stopped because there have been Democrats who've been nervous about their position. It's evolved in recent years. I'm curious how far you think it's changed.
Different Democrats are going to talk about it differently in, rural states versus more urban states for sure. But I think the messenger matters. I'm a Marine officer. I slept, ate, trained, patrolled with an assault weapon for 4.5 years. Part of the reason I'm taking on this issue is I do think I can go into purple and red districts and make the case that we're not going after the individual right to bear arms. I respect weapons, but weapons need to be used respectfully, and no civilian needs to have an assault weapon.
All right, Congressman Jake Auchincloss, stay with us. We're going to talk to you again in just a couple of minutes. Thank you.